Let's talk about what's in these bills right now with California Congressman and Armed Services and Oversight Committee member Khanna. Congressman, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks very much for being here this morning.
Thank you, Maria, for having me back on.
So these 5 bills were introduced in the Judiciary Committee. Tell me what the goal is, Congressman. What are you and your colleagues trying to do?
Well, Maria, the goal has to be stronger antitrust enforcement so that tech companies can't preference their own products and have unfair market advantage. The problem is some of these bills haven't been thought out. For example, one of the bills, by saying that you can't discriminate at all, would actually end content moderation. It would say that companies couldn't make a determination of having a platform that has massive hate speech not on it. So I just think there has to be more thought put into some of these bills.
So do you want to see changes? You want these rewritten? Will you vote no on these bills then?
Well, I don't get a vote, but I do think that they need to be written in a much more thoughtful, accurate way. I think some of the people who wrote it don't understand all the details of how these platforms work. And I say this as someone who wants stronger antitrust enforcement. I say it as someone who's opposed to Google and Apple having a deal where Google is the default search engine. I mean, there are problems with how tech has operated, but there's a lack of knowledge, frankly, in the House. They don't understand the details of some of these platforms. They don't understand the unintended consequences. You look at what GDPR did in Europe, and the tech companies are running circles around them. Google's market share has increased in Europe since the GDPR, and I fear the same sort of technology illiteracy is guiding the House.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned this because we spoke with Congressman Jim Jordan last week. He does get a vote. He's on the Judiciary Committee. And he says that these bills actually give the Biden administration more power and control over these platforms in a way that would make them beholden to woke bureaucrats. Listen to what he told us last week about this legislation.
Yeah, I mean, look, we need to start from the basics. Big tech is out to get conservatives. We know that. We know what they've done to the president, the then sitting president of the United States. So we know they're out to get conservatives. This bill doesn't deal with the censorship that is happening, not just for elected conservatives or people in the media like you, but for, countless number of citizens across this country. I think what these bills do very clearly is they marry up big government with big tech, and I think it's going to make the situation worse.
So, Congressman, you also had some negative things to say. These bills were introduced by progressive Democrats. What is the next move? Do you think they will pass, or do you think they will need to be tweaked?
I think they'll need to be tweaked. I don't agree with Representative Jordan that there's some massive bias against conservatives. I mean, the top pages on Facebook are all conservative pages. I wish, actually, progressives were doing better. But I agree with him on one point. And that is that some of these bills require basically you to get approval for any time you have an improvement in a product and get a bureaucrat to sign off on that. We need to have big tech be accountable, but we need to understand something. We have the most innovative economy, entrepreneurial economy in the world. We have to compete with China. And the way we kill that is by having bureaucrats run every single aspect of how a product is designed. So I think the intent was good, but the execution bad.
You make a great point because I know Representative Scanlon's Access Act, her bill creates technical committees to oversee these companies. These committees will not be subject to the Federal Advisory Committee Act, which means they'll meet in secret or they'll be able to pretty much set the tone for how these companies operate. And what is a covered platform? I mean, you've got companies like Alphabet considered a platform, Apple, Twitter, Facebook. Maybe not Twitter because it doesn't have the market value, but who's to say other big companies won't also fall under this, where you're going to have Walmart and Microsoft also having to answer to this secret committee to okay or deny things they want to do on how they operate their business?
I guess the hypothetical I'd ask your viewers is, does anyone in this country believe that if Congress or Washington, D.C. committees were running these companies that you would ever have Apple computers as opposed to Steve Jobs as a genius in inventing things? And so, look, do we have to have accountability? Yes. Has tech done things that are wrong? Absolutely. But do we want to have bureaucrats in charge as opposed to entrepreneurs, that's a recipe for failure, and that's not the American way.
I think you make a great point, Congressman. All right, let me move on to lawmakers trying to strike a deal on how to pay for an infrastructure package. Where are we on that? I know that there's this $1 trillion spending package on the table now. Will we get a bipartisan deal, you think?
I think we could get a bipartisan deal if we have the right pay-fors. I mean, there's no way that progressives can vote for increasing the gas tax. That would go back on President Biden's pledge not to raise taxes on the working and middle class. Marie, here's the thing. I mean, you talk about tax. My district, $10 trillion of market cap, 30% increase in market value in the pandemic. We could pay more taxes in my district. Let's tax the multimillionaires and billionaires to pay for the infrastructure that's benefiting them.
But is that going to be enough, Congressman? Can you actually garner the revenue by just taxing the highest 1% or even 10%?
I think we can. I think Larry Summers has a paper that shows that you can raise $1.2 trillion just by collecting the taxes that some of these folks owe. And we saw the recent report where some of the billionaires aren't paying tax, not because, by the way, they're committing something as a crime. There are all these deductions. Let's eliminate that. Let's get rid of the loopholes. Let's have a tax on wealth that just like ordinary Americans pay.
Well, that's the law. They're using the loopholes that are available to them. I do have a problem that personal tax returns were leaked. I don't think that's right, but we'll have to get into the IRS being politicized on another conversation. Congressman, it's great to see you this morning, sir. Thank you.